And the first thing you want to know is which is the right side and which is the wrong side. So if I was to look at this and look at the selvage, they look similar, but this is the right side. This is the wrong side. And the way that you can tell also is from the weave. This is the twill weave. On the back, it doesn't look like a twill, correct? So this is the wrong side and this is the right side. The first thing with any piece of fabric is identify the wrong side from the right side. Because when you're ironing it, you're going to iron it with right sides together. Okay, so here's the right side of the fabric and the wrong side of the fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do, and remember I said this is bottom weight fabric, so it tends to be very wide. So I'm going to put my raw edges together and my selvages together. Now sometimes students, when they're novice sewers, their temptation is to pin the selvages together. Don't pin the selvages together. And you can see that this is not a particularly well blocked piece of fabric, right? Okay. So I'm going to try and block it just a little bit. But I'm not going to worry about it that much. And what I'm going to do to iron is this. I'm going to put my selvages together, keeping the top lined up, and I'm going to iron to the fold. Prepping the fabric properly and ironing it properly is a really good way to start your project. And I'm going to just straighten it out as I go, keeping my selvages together as much as I can. And just pressing to the fold, okay? And you're going to do this all the way down until you have the whole piece of fabric ironed, okay? And you want to cut it with the fold towards you, okay? You're going to cut it on the fold, and you're going to cut it with the fold towards you. Okay, so that seems pretty smooth. Now the important thing is this. Here's the front, and we're laying it precisely along the fold. You always want to make sure that you have fabric on both sides. And what I do to start with is I just pin along the front. And it's going through both layers, but I'm not over pinning. I pin my corners, and then I go back and pin one pin in between. Now, what does this line mean?
The grain.
The grain. So it needs to go, you're going like this. What's this about?
Straight.
It needs to be parallel, okay? It needs to be parallel to the selvage. We don't do that by eye, we do it by measurement. So if I have 9 1/4 inches right there, I'm going to make sure that at the top it's 9 1/4 inches. And when I'm fairly confident that I've got it exactly straight, I put my see-through ruler down and then I pin it, okay? So that's my skirt back. And then I'm going to do the waistband. The waistband, you have a couple options. You could wait until you finish the skirt front and back and then cut it out of a single layer. Or you could even draw it in pencil right on the fabric. Sometimes I draw it right on the fabric rather than pin it, because that way it's absolutely precisely cut. You want your waistband to be very accurate. So I'm going to cut the front and the back. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the edge of the fabric as my guide. I'm cutting with long open strokes. And the idea is this: move the fabric as little as you can. Move yourself. Okay? Don't lift it. I try to hold down my hand along the side so I'm getting clean, even strokes for cutting, right? What are these notches? Seam allowance, okay? Once the piece is cut, I put it to the side and I stack all my pieces together. So I'm following the edges as accurately as I can. And as you noticed, I did not notch yet. So here's my piece of fabric for my waistband. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually draw my waistband onto my fabric. I'm measuring an equal amount from the selvage. You always want waistbands to be perfect. So all I'm doing is drawing a rectangle. My waistband measures 3 5/8. Waistbands are one of the hardest things to cut accurately, and it's really important that they be precisely done. Less important for interfacing. So it's worth the time to do this, okay? Then I can just pin it in a few places because I'm going to use it to notch as a guide for my notching. So in a clockwise fashion, I'm going to go round and notch where all the notches is, and I'm going to think about it. Oh, that must be for the hem. That must be for the side seam. And once you're sure you've done all the notches, you can put it aside, and you're going to notch the next piece. I'm not going to notch the center front, correct? Okay. Once you've done all your notches, you can take it off. And if the front is similar, if the face side of the fabric is similar to the wrong side, what I do is this. Now this is chalk, this will come off, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be really thankful that you did this, okay? So I need to now mark my skirt. So I need my darts done, correct? So what I could do is fold this in half and slip it underneath. So if I put the right sides on either side right here, and I transfer those darts, I will have them on both sides, correct? So very carefully, you're going to carbon your darts on the wrong side of the fabric. If you were doing a very thin fabric, I might do it with a marker that comes off or a chalk. And I also marked the end of the dart so I can see it very clearly. 1, 2, 3. Take out the carbon, and the darts are pretty clearly marked, okay, on both sides. Now that everything's marked, we can take out the pins. Put the pattern pieces together back in the envelope, and we have the front. We have the back. And we have the waistband, okay? The only other thing we need to cut for the skirt is the interfacing. And for the skirt, we're cutting it out of the fusible interfacing. And obviously you can't press this before you cut it. But it's woven, so it too has grain, okay? There's the cross grain, there's the straight grain, and there's my selvage. What you can do with so now I know that's straight. I'm going to use that as one of my edges. And I'm a little less worried about how accurate my interfacing is compared to my waistband. Not that I'm ever not concerned about it being perfect, but I'm not hyper concerned. And you'll notice as you're cutting your interfacing that the grain may be a little off on the interfacing. Interfacing, this is woven fabric, but it is very loosely woven. So the grain, it's just really cheap fabric. And don't mix it up. The interfacing pattern is smaller than your waistband. So make sure you cut the right thing. So there's that. And then I'm going to go back with my little scissors, wherever they are, here somewhere, and cut my notches. And now I have the interfacing and the skirt cut.